Mike Taylor, welcome to the journey. And let me just mention a couple things about the journey and what this whole show is about. It's primarily about capturing just ordinary people as they talk about their story that throughout their life that maybe they've had either obstacles in their life and what did they learn as they persevered through those obstacles, or how they maybe at different times saw themselves failing forward, and then most importantly, what did they learn from that, and then how are they giving back, and how are they maybe being there for other people and as they recreate themselves. And I know we just met a few days ago through a mutual friend. So welcome to the journey. I'm looking forward to getting to know you a little bit more.
Yeah.
So Mike or Matt, before we get started, kind of fill me in a little. What is it that you do when you have an opportunity to have fun? What do you do for fun?
Yeah. So what I do full time is that I'm a YouTube content creator. I have a channel called You Can Uke. It's been a channel that I've been working on since May of 2017. And it's definitely received a large following now. I have over 35 million views and 427,000 subscribers. And it's given me an opportunity to reach people all over the world, teaching them how to play the ukulele. And also I provide song covers on my channel each week so that people can play along with the songs I teach. It's been a really big blessing to be able to stay at home all the time now with my kids. I have 3 girls and a wife, and it's been really nice to in a sense be my own boss and be able to do YouTube full time. For fun, I still love music, whether it's on the camera or off the camera, but there's some other things that I like to do. I'll play sports. I love to run. I love to work out, especially, and just keep myself in good physical form. I feel like staying fit physically also helps me in a mental and a spiritual aspect as well. They're all kind of connected together. And then I also love playing with my kids. I love traveling, going to spontaneous locations. Sometimes we'll go to a new park that we've never been to before.
Sure.
But yeah, a lot of it's just like spending time with the family. And then I also get a lot of energy from just socializing, being around people. I'm kind of an extrovert or a social butterfly, if you will. And even meeting people that are new, meeting people for the first time, like having this interaction between you and I really enjoy this because it gives me a chance to get to know another story and even to have an opportunity to tell my story and whatever I've learned that might benefit them or someone else. So that's what I like to do for fun.
Perfect. Well, why don't we just kind of jump into that? So, Matt, are you from the Rockford area?
I didn't grow up in Rockford. I actually moved here 3 years ago because I came to work at a church in Rockford called State Line. And I actually grew up in Arizona, but I was born, the journey of my life. I was born in Chicago, moved to Arizona, grew up there, and then moved back to Illinois for a church job in 2017.
Gotcha. Okay. So when you were in high school, right, in Arizona, that sounds like you were in Arizona. What or middle school, whatever. What types of, like, if we were going to take a snapshot of you back then, what was Matt like at that time growing up?
Yeah, I think I grew up very sheltered, and I love my parents. I grew up in a Christian household. I just never really learned how to make decisions for myself.
Okay.
And so there was a lot of things that I even had to learn, like going into like being married and stuff like that. But back when I was in middle school and high school, I was always busy with something, whether it was being academically busy, uh, being busy through sports. I did a lot of sports in high school. I did a lot of musical ventures too, like piano lessons. I did choir. I did marching band and jazz band. So I had just a very packed schedule. I almost feel like I never had a chance to rest, and I was always like performing for someone. That was kind of like the lifestyle that I lived. My family also, they're kind of a performance-esque type of family. My dad grew up playing music, and he actually would have been signed to a major record label a few decades ago, but he decided to forego that dream to start a family, and I'm the firstborn, so he left his dream to be my dad.
Okay.
And so in a sense, like, I kind of received the torch, if you will, of his musical dream. Um, so yeah, just always performing all the time, very busy.
Okay.
And then, in the spiritual side of things, I grew up in church, but it was never something that I took seriously. I mean, I was always on my best behavior, and that was kind of like what my parents wanted me to be. Is just like, at home I was a little bit more rowdy and wild, but at church it was just be on my best behavior, and just in a way look good, because then it also reflects them too. Um, but after high school, when I went to college, I kind of just said I'm my own person, and I stopped going to church for a little bit, and I actually resented church too. So it was very shallow. I didn't really have a relationship with Jesus growing up.
Gotcha. So I just did a talk on dualistic thinking versus non-dualistic thinking. So this kind of this tribalism versus kind of evolving into otherness, otherism, and in a piece of what I was talking about, and maybe you can reflect on this, is that we start off our parents and you being the oldest, so it was your parents and the people that your parents had you around, they formulate that bedrock, that foundational or that construction phase of our life, right? And so it's those values that we have, and then at some point we we leave that and we go into our own journey of okay, are we going to completely take on everything they've said, or are we going to start deconstructing that because we see some things that don't fit for us, or they don't fit it for this generation or whatever. And in the restlessness of that, which is kind of a scary phase to going through, and it's weird. We can go all over the place and get caught up in things or whatever, but at some point we will evolve out of that, and it's a reconstruction phase. And so we take some of the stuff that's in phase one with some of the mix in stage two to hopefully evolve into something that's even greater. And it sounds like you may have had a little bit of that yourself. Your the experience? I mean, obviously you understood the expectation that you were supposed to be appropriate, be good, all those types of things, be respectful and all that. Was it a particular denomination that your parents attended when you were younger, or?
Yeah, I grew up in a Pentecostal denomination. I grew up in the Assemblies of God,
Okay.
and I mean, even growing up in that type of environment was kind of weird for me, because there's just a lot of there was a lot of things going on during that, um, I guess, experience. When people would gather for our services, there'd be like speaking in tongues, and sometimes we would have people that would go up to the altar to get prayed for, and then they would just fall to the floor and get what they call slain in the spirit. And I really didn't understand like what all that meant. I didn't even understand like if that was biblically right or not. And then there was another aspect where I was afraid to even bring friends to church, because I knew that they were going to see that, and they wouldn't have any idea what's going on. It was going to scare them away. So like that kind of stuff, there's still aspects to it to this day where I'm like, there might be some authentic experiences that people might have had in those gatherings, but it's just, for the most part, I always thought it was just like for show, or, I also growing up, I felt like this pressure where I had to do these certain things. Like if I were to go up to the altar, I felt like I had this expectation on me that I needed to fall on the floor and be slain in the spirit, or I need to, if I get prayed for, if I go to the altar, someone is expecting me at the altar to like just start speaking in tongues. And it was so hard to develop a really authentic relationship with Jesus, because of those certain pressures. So yeah, when I left, when I graduated high school and started college, I really kind of took a hard look at myself and was like really reevaluating, like, do I really believe in this stuff?
Mm.
I even had people in, because I went to junior college in my freshman year, and I remember having a chemistry class, and for some reason, I would bring my Bible with me because I thought, in hindsight now, but looking back, I thought I believed in Jesus, but I really was like just trying to perform for Jesus. I was trying to like read my Bible and pray, but I didn't really like think of it as like communicating with God. It was more of like I need to check these things off my list, like read my Bible, get that done out of the way, you know. But I would bring my Bible to college, and the person that sat next to me in my chemistry class looked over at my desk and saw this Bible, and he said, "Oh, you read the Bible? Well, what about this? You know, Bible says that people were, you know, Israelites were killing other people in the Old Testament. Like, what do you think about that? Why would God allow people?" I just didn't know. I didn't know any of the answers. I didn't. There's a lot of questions that this atheist next to me was asking me that I just didn't know how to respond to, and that was kind of like the point where I really need to reevaluate. Do I really believe in this stuff? Do I Should I adopt all the things I was taught growing up in my church?
Right. So that's kind of the deconstruction phase that I was just referring to.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it does happen. If it doesn't happen as we grow in that first phase, in the tribe, then we definitely, when we're away at college or we move for the military, whatever the reasons why we may step away from the physical environment, we're going to take some of that. We obviously are going to take it with us at first because that's all we know. Um, but then things start challenging it, or expose us to a bigger, broader type of thing, right? And
Yeah.
so where'd you end up going to school after the junior college? Where'd you go to college?
So I transferred to a Bible college called Arizona Christian University,
Okay.
and it was actually a really pivotal point in my life that I transferred there. I was actually supposed to transfer to Arizona State University to study music, but at that point in my life, it just wasn't the right fit for me. Not that I couldn't have excelled there. It's just from an academic standpoint, it's just I had actually recently become, I would say, a true Christian, someone that actually has an authentic relationship with God. It was after my freshman year, you know, after that deconstruction phase and figuring out like what do I believe. So reason why I didn't go to Arizona State University is because their music college is one of the top-notch music schools in the country. It's very competitive, and for me, I'm very competitive by nature, and I know that it wouldn't have been a good environment for me to develop my relationship with Jesus. It's also considered a party school, and I just knew that that wasn't the type of environment that I wanted to place myself in. So I had somebody else that was going to Arizona Christian University, and they reached out to me and said, "Hey, you should really consider studying music here. You know, you can get your Bible degree." And so I majored in music and got a minor in biblical studies there, and it was just great for helping me actually start like developing my relationship with Jesus.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for some people, right, that they, some of the listeners, they may not fully, some people are going to go and know exactly what you mean when you talk about that. Others, it's going to be more of a broad sense of spiritual development, right? And versus just going because you are being obedient to parents and because you're following what the group norm is. Now, this was a different, because you could have gone anywhere or gone nowhere, right? In this
Yeah.
particular, but there was something that was pulling you into that spiritual development that then became developing a deeper understanding of what it is to be a follower of Christ.
Yeah. I just know that before I became a true believer, I was just always seeking to perform for people. And I think that's why I didn't grow in my relationship with, I don't think that's why I had like a relationship with Jesus, because I was all about just performing, and I needed to get away from that type of mindset. And then at the same time, like I was just rewiring my mind about what the Bible says and how do I interpret it. And I knew that I could get help there going to this Bible college, and like just figuring out like how do I interpret the Bible correctly. Um, and how will that even affect the way that I, continue going to church and choosing like what my, I guess fellowship would be.
Mhm.
But it was a very pivotal point in my life, and I'm glad I decided to go the biblical college route rather than the liberal arts university.
Sure. Sure. Well, and again, it sounds like, and this happens a lot of times, is it sounds like because the first phase, right, that there was, it was laid out for you, right, and the maybe the road markers were pretty close together, and you could navigate through that without necessarily even having your own thoughts about what you were going to do. This was what was the map that was already laid out for you.
Yeah. I mean, I remember actually when I told my dad that I was going to go to Arizona Christian University, it wasn't something that he was a big fan of. I mean, because he didn't look at the school as a legit college where you could, really get a good music education.
Mm,
I mean, it's much smaller. And then, like, think about it this way: if you had the chance to go to Harvard to study law, or go to, you know, a a really small school that nobody's ever heard of to study law, and you walk away from Harvard and you decide to go to the smaller school, like that's almost like the scale. I mean, it sounds a little bit more like exaggerated, but in a sense, Arizona State University has just a top-notch music school, um, and I decided to reject that to go to some smaller, you know,
right.
like unidentifiable biblical school. Um, So he wasn't a big fan of that, but I at the same time, this was me saying like, no, I know that this is a decision I need to make for myself, and I'm not uh, like I'm not gonna carry my dad's dream. Like I know what is right for me.
Yeah, yeah. So my, a lot of my backstory is studying men's psychology, and the initiation process of boyhood to manhood, and that piece, and what you just said, not knowing, you may not know what that you just said it, but that is a critical step that a boy, when he recognizes that he has to consciously reject his father's dream so that he can then go and pursue and find and pursue his own dream. That's a critical step in crossing over that threshold. And then with your backstory of saying that you had very much and were good at performance, and obviously got the validation and the affirmation of pleasing people, right, by performing, that must have been a huge step. That must have been a pretty either courageous step, or to be able to do that, because on a smaller scale, I remember in a similar situation. My dad played college football at Iowa State and got injured. And back in the 60s, if you got injured, pretty much it was taken away from you. And he went back to the farm and then ended up working the factory his rest of his life. And he wanted me to pursue that dream of playing football in college,
Yeah,
and I was done. I wanted to continue competing as a bodybuilder, and I remember that my senior year, it felt like it was every night we were debating or arguing over that. But I knew that it was something that I couldn't really compromise.
yeah.
Um,
There's been a lot of areas where my dad and I have debated certain things, even like what we believe now. I don't want to say they're polar opposites, but you know they're different. He still kind of believes in the things that I grew up with, and I've developed my own sense of faith in Jesus. And I I just know that there was a part of me also saying that I've never really had the chance to make my own decisions for myself, growing up. And I mean, if, in a sense, it might have also been like a decision of defiance. It's like, no, I know what I want. I never had a chance to do anything of my own, volition. So this is a decision I'm making for myself.
sure.
And I just really was hungry for it. I was really hungry for, when I say it, I mean, I was really hungry for like wanting to grow in a deeper sense in my relationship with Jesus. And I was very sure that it wasn't going to be at this liberal arts college where I was going to transfer to.
Sure.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, like my allegiance goes to Jesus, even above my own family, and
Mhm.
that's the decision that I knew I had to make.
Sure, sure. So if and maybe just give us, and if it's possible, right? There was something that went from, you know, obviously what you grew up with, and knowing what you were supposed to do, stand up, sit down, you know, what you were supposed to do regarding certain things, to sitting in that chemistry class and that individual asking you questions that you recognized pretty quickly that he knew more about the Bible than you did, or at least a deeper sense of it, right? Of those questions. What was that? What do you think was for you that turning point? And it may not have been an event, obviously, but what was the turning point that was like, I want to know more and continue pursuing developing this relationship?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's a very complex story. I think part of the reason why I turned away from the way that I grew up, the even adopting the beliefs that I grew up with in church, was one because I was being challenged with things I didn't know about regarding the Bible, and two, I actually was involved with a person in college. Like I had a relationship with a girl, and it was a girl that wasn't good for me. I mean, she wasn't the type of person that would help me to understand more about who Jesus is. And there was just a lot of dumb decisions I made with her, and it got to a point. 'Cause my parents knew I was getting involved with this girl, and they didn't like her. And anyway, it got to a point where um, like I wanted to move out of my house to live with this girl.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I just couldn't stand being around my parents any longer. Couldn't stand them always holding my. I wanted to be in this relationship too. Part of it was because my parents wouldn't ever allow me to date growing up, and it was just like one of those decisions I wanted to make for myself because I felt like I was an adult by that point. But I was seeing how this relationship was actually messing me up, and it was like growing up, going through college too. I had my own band. I had a band. We recorded uh, a few like singles and an EP, and we were getting booked for some really crazy places. Like we actually got to play at the Talking Stick Resort, which is where the Phoenix Suns play. Right.
Oh,
We were landing some gigs and getting involved with some recording labels, and uh, the thing that messed up that whole vibe with the band was this girl. This girl um, was the reason why my band split up. My band members were saying just how bad this girl was for me, and how she was really like taking more of my attention away from me, like being fully invested in the band, and being effective as a leader of the band. And so it really that relationship like kind of ruined me my freshman year of college. And so I kind of hit like a rock bottom where you have this dream that's escalating. You kind of you're seeing it open up more and more, and then all of a sudden it all like drops, and the person that you're left with is this girl who is kind of like the reason why all the dreams have kind of faded out. And I mean, it's not entirely her fault because I chose to be with her. I chose to engage with her in the ways I did my freshman year of college. But I knew at that point, like I couldn't go on living my life like this. And like even in that time of my life, I had, in a way, like decided to like not pursue Jesus. So I knew that once I left that relationship, like the only way up is, really taking a closer look at my relationship with God, and what does having a true relationship with Him look like. He was basically like essentially the only hope that I had at that point of my life.
okay. So, so it's interesting because that is that element of when people refer to as hitting a bottom, or everything's going a certain way, and it's then it stops, right? And it's definitely out of reach and seems to be fading. and recognizing that, and then of course, obviously, the pain of loneliness, the pain of a relationship ending, which is just a natural first first time, going through all that. That's all first times. I shouldn't just say first time. It happens anytime you invest in something or somebody. Okay, so that makes sense. That then a part of the gap was, this isn't what it wasn't what you had growing up, but there was a sense that there was something more than what you had growing up. That it wasn't that you didn't believe in God. It was just you needed to get a new perspective of it, and like you said, a new relationship with it, not just a performance relationship, but a authentic relationship.
Yeah, yeah, I would say so. Um, and yeah, growing up, I would try to read my Bible. I would try to pray, but there wasn't like anything um, that I didn't feel any deep sense of connection with Jesus. It was like I was just trying to get through, like reading an assignment.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, the difference between that point in my life and after I left my freshman year of college to pursue biblical studies is I had a hunger to actually want to know God more through the Scripture.
Mhm.
And I knew I could get it at that Bible college.
Sure, sure. So then, kind of fast forwarding, you obviously you're married, three girls. Is that what we said? So
Yeah.
so tell us a little bit about what you discovered at ACU, and then how'd you meet your wife, and then kind of fast forward to bring us to where you're at now, and how obviously your family and being at home is. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that. And then obviously coming back to Rockford.
Sure. So I actually started a Bible study group, and it wasn't associated with a church. It wasn't associated with the college. It was just my junior year of college. I just wanted to continue growing and learning the Word, and so I decided to get together with some friends, and we would meet at this coffee shop, and we studied the Bible. And anyway, I share that to say that I remember during that year of my time in college. Um, my college, we would have like these tours that we would put on for prospect students, people that were thinking about coming to the college. And my wife's sister, her name is Abby, she was actually considering coming to Arizona Christian. And I mean, we didn't know each other at the time, but she was on this tour, and the end of the tour landed in the student union, and I was in the student union just studying. After that tour was over, this girl Abby just comes up to me, and not knowing me, but she wanted to really get my perspective of what it's like to be at the college. So she asked me a few questions, and we started engaging in a little bit more dialogue about our upbringing, what we believe um, in a biblical sense. And there was just some things that were lining up. And then I said, hey, you know what? You should consider coming to my Bible study. I think it'd be really great. So I invited Abby to my Bible study. And the reason why I'm laughing is because she had told her sister Ida, which is my wife. Ida is my wife. And uh, Abby had told her about this guy she had met, that she's going to this Bible study that he's leading, and Ida was very protective of her. In fact, Abby had just gotten out of a relationship with the guy, and now that she's gravitating to a new person, a new guy, she wanted to see who this person is all about. So Abby came to the Bible study, and Ida also showed up. Actually, she showed up after the Bible study. After this, the Bible study session, I would invite all of the people that attended to my house. We would have snacks and play games and stuff like that. It was just kind of like a hangout time, and that's where Ida showed up. And I just remember feeling like this intense pressure from her, like almost like she was very intimidating. Just the vibe that she gave off. Uh, and just wanting to know like what am I about. I even remember that there was a guy that attended my Bible study that was at my house, and he was showing all of us his portfolio of paintings and drawings, And my wife, Ida, she is also a painter. She's an artist, and she's done stuff professionally. She's judged a few art shows. And anyway, so at the time, my friend was asking her, "Hey, what do you think about my portfolio?" And she was really hesitant to tell him because she had her own opinion, but he kept asking and asking, and so she finally just kind of laid it to him straight what she thought of it, and it was like, I don't want to say harsh criticism, but I mean the way I received it was like, who is this girl judging my friend? Like, you don't even know him, and she's kind of being in a sense like a little harsh towards him. So my first impression of Ida was that she's just this very intimidating person, very strong-willed. But from there, she began to come back to my Bible studies, and I got a chance to get to know her a little bit more, and soon found out that she also loves music. She leads worship at her church that she was going to at the time, and I was also involved with leading worship at a church. And so it was kind of like this collaborative opportunity for us to like lead worship together. I actually invited her to come lead at this church that I was interning at the time, and then she invited me to come lead worship at her church. And I just remember the feeling of kind of doing it together. Like there was just a spark there, and we both were not dating anybody at that time. We both were choosing to be single, and we didn't even want to tell each other that we were attracted to each other. But I mean, there's a lot of stories I can tell you, but just to kind of fast forward, after a few months of getting to know each other, there came a point where I wrecked her car, um, and
It's always a good opening, right?
it is honestly. I got in a car accident with her car. She allowed me to drive her in her car home, and I totaled her vehicle. And my sister was with us too, but she ended up in the hospital. Wasn't really injured. It was just stiff from the impact. But it was at that hospital where I got really nervous because I didn't know if Ida was gonna sue me. I didn't know if this was like the end of our friendship. But I just remember that night, just this like tug in my heart, thinking like I should tell her that I like her, because the next day she was actually gonna fly out for a mission trip and be gone for like 3 months out of the year. And I just felt like if there's an opportunity to like express how much I really like this girl and how much she's been so beneficial to me for like the way she challenges me to grow my relationship with God, um, I wanted to let her know. And so I did, and I ended up finding out that she really liked me too. And we spent the next 3 months while she was away on a mission trip Skyping each other and asking each other more deep questions, personal questions, um, questions that even link to, what do we think about marriage. And I think it was pretty clear to both of us that we were going to be married. So, and we didn't get married right away, but we dated with the intent of marriage in front of us. So, but yeah, that was like my junior year of college when that happened. And then by the time I reached my senior year, I was already working part-time at a church. We got married um, before the last semester of my senior year, before I graduated. And even then, that was like a decision that we had to make apart from the will of my parents, because my parents wanted me to graduate college before I got married, but it was kind of the flip. It was, we got married and then I, finished the last semester of college, and there was kind of some, tension there between my relationship with my parents and us, the fact that we made that decision. But and then that last semester of college, I moved into a full-time position at a big church in Arizona, about 8,000 people, and I became one of the worship pastors there. And I ended up, I started up as the student worship pastor for the student ministries, and then transitioned into being a worship pastor for one of their 3 campuses. And then, before, like, by the end of my time there, I was brought back to the main campus, and was primarily like the Saturday night uh, like worship leader kind of role. So,
Okay.
uh, and that was like all within my college career. So it's been pretty crazy.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say, that's a pretty quick acceleration, right?
it's a lot
Yeah,
of moving pieces.
yeah, no kidding. And so just kind of fast forward to where you're at now. Obviously, you make a transition to Rockford. You have an opportunity to work in a startup church at State Line. Were you the worship leader at State Line when you came up to State Line?
Yeah, I was the main worship pastor, and
Okay.
I mean the reason why I transitioned from my former church in Arizona to State Line was I just thought that it would give me more opportunity to use all the different talents and gifts that I have. Um, at the mega church I worked in Arizona, we had a lot of staff. I think we had like 250 people, and so everybody had their own lane. And I was like, I felt like I did a decent job at my role, but I just didn't feel like I was being challenged enough. And I knew I had more to offer. I just didn't have the opportunities to really be able to use my gift. So I actually looked to Illinois because it's where I was born, and I thought it could be a cool idea to move back to Illinois. And so I started looking at some churches, and I found State Line. Um, I actually came upon some kind of like ad too that was like an advertisement with their like video of the lead pastor Greg talking about the vision and what State Line is all about. And I just remember watching that video and thinking like, okay, I really love what this church is providing. I mean, they're all about relationships and um, like cultivating authentic community. That's kind of like the type of church I was looking for. And so I reached out to the guys at State Line, and it was like a 2 to 3 month process of us having multiple conversations and flying my family and I out to just check it out and lead worship on a weekend there. And we really took our time. We didn't want to just make a swift decision. We wanted to really also feel like we could connect with Rockford. And so when we came here just to visit, like there was a lot that we loved about Rockford. Um, the only parts that we didn't like was the fact that we'd have to move away from our family, but I think it actually has made us stronger and has allowed us to recreate ourselves and even be more established as our own kind of clan. So, but we really loved Rockford, and it was pretty clear to both of us that this is where God was leading us. So we packed up everything, moved to Rockford, and State Line is, I'm not there anymore, but it truly is like the best church I've ever worked for. And I've worked for, I want to say 3 to 4 different churches. So
Mhm.
um, it's got a really unique environment, and I'm just really, really glad that I was able to contribute to cultivating a culture there where anybody could just walk right in and feel like they belonged.
Sure. Well, let me ask you. I'm going to put you on the spot for a second about
All right.
because you said something. I've been born and raised in Rockford and spent the majority of my life here. So when I have someone who's chosen to come to Rockford in their decision as an adult, young adult coming there to as a professional to come here, and then you say all the things that you love about Rockford. So give us like three plugs about what things that you and your wife found that you loved about Rockford.
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, there's a lot to say, but the things that come to mind is we love the scenery, love the changes in the seasons. I mean, there's no place like Rockford in the fall. I mean, Arizona is always hot. And I mean, there's points where we do miss Arizona, when it's really bitter cold here, but it's just beautiful, even seeing the rivers and, being able to go to like a lake nearby. You would have to drive at least 2 hours to get to some kind of lake in Arizona from Phoenix, where I lived. So everything is just pretty close together, and the scenery is the change in the seasons. It's very refreshing. Um, we also uh, love Rockford simply because, like again, the church State Line. It was a really neat. community that we had there. I mean, at the time that we moved here, we didn't know anybody, but when we at least knew, you know, for a little bit, like Greg and Tyler, the pastors that worked there, and they were just very welcoming to us. And so we felt like if we moved here, that we were going to have people that would take care of us and, you know, even kind of be a bridge to helping us find new people and kind of establishing our own sphere of influence. So, um, and then the other piece was, um, I love how family driven this area is. You know, there seems to be a lot of family values out here. It's almost very communal. And if you go to Arizona, if you live in Phoenix, everybody is pretty transient there. I don't want to say everybody, but a majority of Phoenix is transient. You have people moving in and out all the time. You don't really have people who have been established in Phoenix for generations upon generations, and it's kind of more of a, you know, a white collar, independent type of environment where you're kind of like your own person, and it doesn't really feel like a communal type of area in the world. So Rockford, I mean, you have people from their great grandfathers on and on and on down to, you know, their great grandkids who have spent their lives in Rockford. And um, I mean, even the fact that we don't have a fence between our neighbors and us. I mean, uh, there aren't a whole lot of houses outside of the retired communities in Arizona where, you know, like the houses for the most part are separated by fences. So we just kind of like how open people are in Rockford. It definitely has a communal feel. Um, yeah, it's been nice to enjoy being here.
Perfect. Well, I'm gonna ask you one more question here, and I know it's gonna be way bigger than we're gonna today. Hopefully, you'll have time to grasp about it. So if you're open to it, I'd love to have you come back on and
Sure.
talk about this other piece. But you had said something earlier that you essentially you know, now work from home. You work on, you know, what you do as far as delivering and producing and creating content via the internet. And so if there was like, and if you're open to it, having come back on and kind of dive into that piece of it a little bit more, but just for, because there's probably, you know, if there's 100 listeners out there, there's listening right now, there's probably going to be, you know, 75 of them going, oh sure, I'd like to do that. And so, but my guess is that it's not as easy as it sounds, right? And even though you love music and you love, you know, performing and stuff like that, what would be a couple different things that are like critical if you want to have a presence on any type of platform, social media platform? What are a couple things that you know from your own experience that's critical?
Yeah, I mean, I preach this also all the time to people that ask me about my channel and, you know, how do like people that aspire to want to create their own YouTube channel. The things that I share with them is showing up and being consistent. You know, there's been periods where as a creator, you create content and you don't exactly get the result that you're expecting, and you kind of there's a you know a natural tendency to say, oh, this isn't working, maybe I should just stop doing this altogether. But no, it's choosing to stay consistent. It's kind of like marriage, you know, like you're gonna have so many different ups and downs. You know, I mean, in my own marriage, there's been points where we've thought like, can this continue? Can this marriage continue to work? And we've said, you know what, we're going to continue to show up. We're going to continue to fight because it is worth it. And, you know, like we're here today, and it's, you know, God has done a lot of things in our story together as a couple that I know is going to bless so many different people. And it's the same way with, you know, creating a YouTube channel. To, you know, to extent it, when I started my YouTube channel back in 2017, my first 6 months, I didn't receive anything above 100 subscribers. It was very small. You know, and so someone listening to me right now would have thought 6 months and only 100 subscribers, like, why were you wasting your time? But I just knew that if I continued to just work at it, and I had some mentors as well who they have a huge YouTube channel, about almost 4 million subscribers now. And they were telling me, when you start a YouTube channel, it's going to be really hard to gain momentum for those first few months. You just got to keep putting out content, because once you get that one video that really, goes viral, or receives a lot of attention, you're going to have this whole other library of videos that people can, go to. And so I just kept working at it, kept showing up, stayed consistent. And, by my 7th month of being a YouTuber, I had a video really take off. It was a tutorial on the song of How to Play Perfect by Ed Sheeran. And now that video has 3.2 million views. But that was kind of the video that really helped launch my growth and, start gaining 12,000 new subscribers every single month. But it went from 100 all of a sudden to 1,000 to like 10,000 within 2 months. It was pretty crazy. So you got to be consistent. You got to just show up, even if the results aren't immediate. It will eventually happen.
And my guess is, and you didn't say this, but my guess is, Matt, that there's also something throughout your whole journey, you have learned that you have to stick to being authentic. That there is a blessing that comes to sticking to authenticity, even if you're not getting the affirmation that it's being received.
Yeah, no, you're totally right about that. There's even been challenges in this season now, in this year. When you're starting a YouTube channel, one of the biggest things is cultivating the right culture. And I've had to really rethink, how do I want to be even more authentic to my community? How do I want to present myself as someone who doesn't just provide content, but really provides an opportunity to listen to people, and show them that I care. And actually, after this podcast, I'm going to be doing a Zoom call with one of my subscribers from all the way from Hong Kong. And I said, hey, I want to listen to your story. I want to listen to whatever you want to share with me for 20 minutes. Absolutely free. Like, I'm not even charging them that time. I'm just simply giving it to them because I want to show them that I care. And I think I had a mentor once tell me, people don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. And if you can project that to people, they'll stick by you, and they'll be loyal. So
yeah. Well, I think that's a perfect place, and I know when I got it, literally, we were down for suicide prevention, company that I had created, a few years ago, and our vice president was down there, and you guys started talking, and then all of a sudden, I don't know, something that you said caught my attention, and I was like, did you just? And I was like, it was, I knew that I wanted to know more about your story. And so, and I knew that I wanted the people that listen to this particular platform, the show, I wanted them to know, that there are some aspects of your story that maybe they can identify with. And we never know, right? We never know when someone needs to hear exactly what you share today. So Matt, as we wrap up, if there was one thing for anybody listening today that you'd want to share with them, what would be something you want to close with?
Man, there's a lot of people hurting today, a lot of people that don't know what the future looks like. I mean, we've got elections coming up. There's a lot of people that own businesses that don't know how their businesses are going to thrive in this economy. And, even for me, I've had to really remind myself, like, God's got a plan. We can't see the future. We don't know what the entire road looks like, but it's just trusting God with the very next step. And, the Bible says that God is a lamp unto our feet. So it's really just choosing to say, I don't know what the future looks like, but I'm just going to choose to, like, trust God and just keep looking at him and reminding myself that I'm his child, that, he has plans for my life to prosper,
It's interesting when you just said that, and that imagery that comes with that passage about a lamp upon your feet, right? It doesn't talk about the lamp illuminating the entire road so you can see exactly where you're going. It's just
exactly
just right in front of you.
Yes.
Matt,
Yeah.
thank you very much for being with us. I appreciate what you do and your story, and I would love to have you back on so we can go into maybe a little bit deeper dive about all the ups and downs of what that's been like over the last 3 years.
Sure. Absolutely. I appreciate that. I appreciate you, and I appreciate, what you've done. Founding KP Counseling. You're affecting and impacting so many different lives in Rockford, and I think around the world. So thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, my friend. I will talk to you soon. Okay. Have fun talking to someone who's it's probably early in the morning over there right now. So when you talk to Hong Kong. So all right, we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.